I was trying to get the rendezvous point for my daughter,
Right.
Willa.
If you can't answer what time is it, I cannot give you the rendezvous point. This is a key tenet of the rebellion pact. I'm surprised you can't name it. I don't know if you are.
What makes this scene so tense? Is it the pain and agony Leonardo DiCaprio seems to be carrying? Is it the feeling of denial from the guy over the phone? Well, this is from the recent film One Battle After Another, which has gained praise and success for its well-rounded story and amazing performances, making it an instant hit and one people think may be the best of the decade. And in today's video, we're going to be exploring how One Battle After Another uses a series of phone calls to build tension and suspense to capture the viewer and draw you in. Now, before we get into the phone calls, we need to know what to look for and what really are the leading causes that make this scene so perfect. The first leading cause is the many types of shots it uses. Next is the music. Thirdly is the police. And finally is the mix of chaos Anderson supplies in such a short amount of time. The first call Bob gets is while he's smoking at his house, thinking his daughter is out at a dance. We pick up on Bob, who's watching a film about revolutions, and he's almost reminiscing about his past life, when he gets interrupted by a phone call. Once Bob picks up the phone, he soon realizes that this is a coded revolutionary phone call about his daughter, and initially he begins to panic, as he doesn't remember the greeting code to authorize himself, justifying it by claiming how he is high and that it's been a couple years since he's remembered them. But then he regains some knowledge and starts decoding the message. As he decodes, the scene remains somewhat calm, and Bob keeps taking hits off his blunt. And this is very important, as throughout the movie, Bob's character is a massive stoner who has used weed and alcohol as an escape from his past traumas that happened about 20 years ago. However, he seemingly only ever does that while he is calm and in a comforted environment, as weed and alcohol to him symbolizes a sense of control and calmness in which he can manage to regain and assure himself that nothing is wrong. Yet then the rest of the phone call plays out, and Bob finds the true meaning behind the message and the reason for the call, and he does not keep smoking on the phone because the messenger on the phone tells him that his daughter is being tracked down by a certain interesting military leader that Bob had a bad history with 20 years ago. Now, because his daughter's at the dance still, Bob begins panicking, again, desperately trying to find out where the revolutionaries he trusts had taken her. Yet, right when he asks, the messenger hangs up the phone. And this is where the real tension begins building, as now Bob has no idea where his daughter is and what the military will do to find her. In an attempt to calm himself down, he takes another hit, yet, unlike the past one, this one fills him with pure anxiousness, leading him to flee from the house and try to manage a head start. We then focus on a shot of the door that carries over through an unexpected explosion a couple minutes after what had just happened with Bob. Now, the explosion acts as a way to startle the audience and truly begins the sequence of tension, leading the military group to be right on Bob, with them almost even catching him with a smoke grenade that Bob desperately tries to escape as the tense music begins ramping up. As the smoke follows, continuously pressuring Bob and the audience, Bob barely makes it out alive. Yet, as he does, he begins running in a series of continuous shots, while the piano score plays and builds suspense in the background. The continuous follow shots play an important role in giving the scene life, as because the camera follows such a realistic pace and running like movement, it feels as though we're with Bob, experiencing the thrill alongside him. And we can see these shots in many different movies and shows. For example, we see it a lot in The Bear and films like Uncut Gems. And in both cases, they're used to build high stress on the viewer that allows for the scene to feel more tense and feel like you're almost in the room with the people experiencing it. In The Bear Season 1, Episode 7, the pre-order scene is one continuous shot, as it's only trying to build tension and suspense for the final flip out in the ending. We can also see this in many scenes from Uncut Gems, like the door scene and the betting scene, and even the club scene, which is exactly why when it's used here, it only builds more suspense for the overall scene. The piano score here is also very interesting, as it seems very all over the place, in how the music is placed out, but it works perfectly with the scene, as with every sporadic and chaotic move that Bob makes, the piano has almost a reaction to it, which adds a perfect background to the chaos of this whole exchange. Bob then walks out, gets his famous glasses, and reaches a payphone, which leads us to our second phone call. Once Bob reaches the payphone, he anxiously calls the number back, and again, while they answer, he has to work his way through another coded message. Yet, unlike before, he seems to have regained some memory. But then, right when Bob seems to be in the clear, the messenger asks,
What time is it?
Fuck.
seeming to be
You know,
getting nowhere. Bob again begins to panic. And there's a couple things to note here. The first thing is how, throughout this whole interaction, as he works his way through, the camera slowly zooms in as if each question is securing his identity and bringing him one step closer to reaching his daughter. And because the stakes are so high, it builds an eerie tension within this whole phone call. Another thing is the constant sirens in the background that again bring back the symbol of the police and the idea that Bob is trying to lay low as best as he can in the stressful scenario. And while all of this happens, the piano score again plays in the background, seeming to get faster and faster in pace as Bob begins to get more and more angry and stressed. Now, the way the scene used anger here to build tension is very interesting, as because they are speaking in code, the viewer seems to be again in the same place as Bob, trying to navigate and understand something they have forgotten or have never had the knowledge of. And because of this, we get just as angry and unsatisfied when the messenger denies Bob. This is then when Bob begins to flip out, and in the most angry we've seen him in the movie so far, he realizes,
Did you just fucking hang up on me, you fucking liberal fucking prick?
Then, in a sequence of high action, police cops come barreling down the street while Bob desperately tries to dodge them and escape, which is then when we get our first introduction to Sensei. We pick up with him seeing the cop cars, and instantly it draws in his attention. Soon after, Bob comes rushing through the door, and the way Bob enters pretty much sums up this entire sequence of stressful phone calls, as he frantically runs through the dojo in search of a weapon, while Sensei just calmly talks on the phone and watches, wondering what is going wrong. As Bob re-enters the frame, we see him again duck down to try to avoid the cops. And the tone of Bob versus Sensei here is really interesting, as Bob seems to be very intensely moving by adrenaline, while Sensei is really calm and pretty much is just trying to understand what's even going on. After this small exchange happens, we realize that the only thing stopping Bob from reaching the final phone call is that he needs a charger for his phone. So as Bob begins panicking again, and we see that with every moment going by, he's slowly losing his chance of finding his daughter, Sensei creates a plan to go to his house to get him a gun and a charger, and tells Bob just to
breathe. All right, okay? Cool out. Ocean waves. Ocean waves. Let's go.
Now, Sensei giving Bob this sense of a breath of fresh air lets not only Bob relax for a brief second, but also gives the audience a reassuring after watching such stressful events in such a short period of time. They then reach the car, and during the car ride, the sequence of events that play arguably creates the most tension of all, as we see the daughter's friends nervously being asked questions, the discovery that the daughter had a phone, and finally, a ride in the street that instantly becomes violent. Now, although these things kinda tie into the story, they don't directly relate to what's happening with Bob at that exact moment, as Anderson is brilliantly using a feeling of unwanted chaos that only makes the scene more intense to try to build tension and suspense and connect to the audience by using everyday things like having to talk in front of an audience, a family member lying to you, or even just violent events that's happened throughout the world to try to build stress and suspense. And this allows for kind of a second layer of tension throughout the scene that we don't usually see in movies because it's so all over the place. We then see a continuous shot again once they enter the store, which ends with Sensei screaming to get off the phone, in which Bob thinks he's talking to him when in reality he's talking to his son, who's using his phone while he's supposed to be working. Now, the fact that this can be so easily missed the first time you watch it shows how closely related the audience can feel to Bob, as regardless of who Sensei is yelling at, in this high tense scenario, any loud noise sends everything and everyone off on a spiral because everything seems so high pressure and high stakes. Again, in another continuous shot, we work our way through Sensei's house, and as Bob tries to move faster and faster, trying to get to the room the charger is in, Sensei again tries to calm everything down in the scene, acting like nothing is wrong and slowly introducing each member of his family. Bob then finally gets to the charger and hears helicopters and sirens from the streets. In an attempt to hide himself, breaks the curtain as the piano keeps playing in the background. Bob then starts the final phone call and begins talking with the same messenger from before. And again, he asks Bob about the time. And Bob, in a sheer sense of brokenness, breaks down due to the high anxiety of this whole scene. He then does everything he can to try to get the messenger to remember him and uses sympathy of his drug use to try to gain the messenger's trust. Yet again, it's not enough, and he begins to break down even more. Then, in a short period, he gives up on even trying to justify himself. And he even begins to downplay the messenger, insulting his system of questioning and even his name.
Get a better name, Comrade Josh. That's a fucking ridiculous name for a revolutionary, first off.
And as Bob begins freaking out on the guy, Sensei comes in with a beer, again trying to lighten the mood with something that used to calm Bob down. Bob then calls in a Greyhawk 10, meaning to put the messenger's boss on the phone, and once he feels he has won the exchange, he takes a sip of alcohol, showing how he is comfortable and he feels he has beat the system, almost celebrating. Although that feeling doesn't really last, because soon after Bob gets impatient of waiting, the police get to the store and are ready to break down the door, and again act as a leading enemy in this scene that never seems to go away. Finally, the boss gets on the phone, and Bob knows him. And in the first sense of hope in this scene, the boss asks him to answer one final question. Now, after everything that's happened to both Bob and the audience in this whole exchange, Bob begins to panic for the final time, trying to tell him that he doesn't remember and that he's at his lowest. And just when the scene cannot get any more tense and Bob begins to give up, the boss says,
"What's my favorite kind of pussy?"
Mexican hairless.
Woo. Okay, 1 second.
Finally, after 20 minutes of suspense, stress, and tension, the scene's climax is reached, and Bob successfully answers the question, getting the info he needs to start his journey. To both Bob and the viewer, it feels like a sweet victory in such an extreme comedic way that gives the scene its character and life and demonstrates why this movie will be by far one of the greatest of the decade. Alright, that's going to wrap the video today, guys. Let me know what you thought in the comments, but I'm even more interested to see what you guys think of this movie, as a lot of people are saying it's movie of the year, and I think the biggest comparison to that is probably Sinners so far this year. And to me personally, I still pick Sinners. I think it's the better movie. Say what you will, but me personally, if I had to pick a best picture for this year, I would have to go Sinners. So let me know what you think in the comments. Are you more on the side of One Battle After Another, or are you on the side of Sinners, or is there a completely different movie that you think should win this year? But regardless, both are amazing movies. If you haven't checked either one out, you should definitely check them out. But yeah, if you want to support the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. Also, I'm going to put my Letterboxd link in the description. I'm not going to lie, I haven't really done too much on Letterboxd yet, but I want to kind of build a community with you guys. So if you're into movies, or even if you're not, it's free to use and you can check it out. Also Letterboxd if you want to sponsor me. Always appreciative of that. But yeah, that's going to wrap up the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.